Eckhart Tolle has a good one on this because he says he loves the how it says in English the word it's human being.
Mm.
So you have the human side
Right.
and then you have the being side. But most people are just stuck in the human. But you gotta bring the being into the human and then you have a human being.
Oh.
And I found that very powerful to realize, oh shit, yeah, he's right. You have to bring the being so you can call yourself a human being.
That's cool.
Otherwise, it's just a human, not a human being.
You don't want to be a human doing.
Yeah, human doing or human having.
Welcome back. Another day. We're back again. More insights, more conversations. Day 7, I want to say.
Took a while.
Yeah. I mean, today we've had a bit of a chill day. We've been, like, for me, I've been kind of meditating throughout the day, but like maybe apart from like 1 or 2 hours of specific meditation, the rest of the day was just kind of a meditative day, depending on the activities,
Mm.
kind of going in and out of that state of meditation, remaining as presence while allowing thoughts to calm and seeing where they go and how that affects my view on the previous self and the next self to build. So yeah,
Mm.
that's kind of a little breakdown of my day.
Okay.
How about you?
Me. Mm. Yeah, like you said pretty much. Uh, we're not like in this last. Well, today at least we're more like focusing on not in sitting down and meditating. We're just like trying bring presence to whatever you're doing, even if that means we're not sitting down. So when we go back to regular life, we we're already used to have that in our life by default in in every in every aspect instead of just like waiting to because we could get into a trap and like you only meditate when you sit down and then you just go unconscious the rest of the day, which is not really the purpose. I think you should bring presence to your life throughout all the day, and that will over time will increase the level of presence in your life and make your life much better. So that's way better than just sitting down. Of course, doesn't cut the fact that you can sit down and meditate. That's cool, but not making it like the exception where you meditate, but just being meditative is like the rule, and sitting down is the extra that you can do sometimes, or in the morning or in the night. Just do that, and then just keep presence. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did. I think I wasn't using the mind much. Sometimes thoughts would come, very few, but I wouldn't feel into the mind because most of the things that I wanted to realize pretty much realized already, and even a lot of emotions that I felt that I was feeling today, I felt like I really realized that even those emotions were coming from unconscious thoughts. Some thoughts would recreate these emotions,
Hmm.
and so if you don't, if you like, the way I see it is like if you well, this is my where I'm at right now. Maybe not everyone is at where I'm at, but if I just stay presence itself, then whatever appears to be in the form of an emotion, I just ignore it like it doesn't exist, and then it just fades away.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's like because it's actually the emotion. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think I said the mind creates it and then it kind of reinforces it, and so it will do that. But once you don't, like, the emotions are nothing without you giving away power to them, like as they are something.
That's
You know, like
yeah.
I'm like I have this uncomfortable, unpleasant sensation, I can either like be present and completely ignore the sensation like it doesn't exist and it just goes away, or I can like be troubled by it and then start resisting it and actually amplifies it and actually makes it worse. So it just ignoring it just makes it the easiest to not even deal with it. It becomes like it becomes in such a ridiculous way that like it after a while you become so de-entangled from it because you're not even giving your power away to it, even how strong that sensation is, doesn't matter how strong it is. But the moment is that you don't give any power away to it, you just ignore it as non-existing thing, and it doesn't affect your life, it just becomes a non-thing.
So that's interesting. Interesting that you say that because I kind of feel like I've been doing that for a while, and it's like whenever the emotions would come, apart from specific emotions, when it comes to like maybe fear and anxiety, the ones that I feed into, but other emotions, I don't know. Sometimes I can just watch them pass away, just like come and go, and but then is there like some kind of issue if if someone is to do that, that those if you watch them go away and maybe you ignore them, would they come back stronger in ways that you're probably not aware of in the future? Like, is there some kind of backlash
Mm.
that could occur?
Well, the emotions are trying to fulfill a certain pathway, a certain pattern. So like people usually, because they're not trained with their emotions, what they usually do to control them is try to directly control them, like resist them.
Right.
So they try to directly go at it.
Right.
And because that's the way we were conditioned, like to handle stuff is like directly, like, and emotions cannot be dealt, like you cannot control your emotions directly, you cannot influence them directly. They're just going and fulfilling a pattern. It's like a thought, you cannot just like
Right.
influence it directly, but what you can do is, the way to influence it is by not giving power away to it.
Very nice. Okay, looks like you got this. Very good. Oh, that's sharp turn. Ah, look out!
That's Fear. He's really good at keeping Riley safe.
Easy, easy, huh? How back? Oh, we're good. We're good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we're back.
And just becoming like a conductor of energy. But it's not, maybe I don't know what's your experience with this, but it's not like you resist it or you avoid it or anything like that. It's just like you let it be as it is. Doesn't matter how uncomfortable it is, but you don't you don't give the power away to that you're feeling. Like usually people, when they feel bad, they give the power away for the feeling because they don't want to feel bad. So what happens is, because they don't want to feel bad, then usually they resist the feeling bad. And by resisting the feel bad, people would think that that would get them away from it. But when whatever you resist persists. And that's the trick, is like when you resist it, you actually reinforcing it more and making it stronger, making it more real. Because every time you resist it, you're telling your brain that this is real. What I'm feeling is real, isn't an illusion, is real. But when you just like staying present, it's just let it pass. You saying this thing isn't real. It's just nothingness trying to be somethingness.
Okay, that's interesting. I have a experience with that today actually. So if you remember, when we went out for a walk, we walked past some dogs, and then you started like stroking one or two of the dogs through the thing, and when you put your hand close to the dog's mouth, like I felt some fear because I had a situation where the dog attacked my hand, so like it brought back. Well, I felt some feeling in my body that my mind labeled as fear, which is probably more correct way to put it. So I felt those emotions come through my body, and then I just like observed them and just watched them while you were doing that, while you were touching the dog, all that stuff, while I was close to it. I watched those feelings come through, and I just stayed with it. And then I just like they just went away. Like the dogs were obviously behind a gate, so they weren't gonna get anywhere. But I think just even seeing your hand by the dog's mouth brought up those images and emotions. And yeah, I just watched them come and go, and then it just felt back into presence. So yeah, I did feel a bit of that today for sure.
Interesting. Okay, so what was your biggest realizations from today? What did you get from today that think you changing will change can change your life, like, in a way, for the future?
I think today specifically, one thing that I've done more is like actually implement some of the things that I've learned over the course of this. So like some of the realizations, actually put them into practice. So for example, just to get rid of the belief that I am not good at projecting my voice, for example. Just like standing out in the middle of the woods and just like shouting loud, but from the diaphragm, not from trying to. There was some throats screams in there, but there was some deep, too deep. But just from the diaphragm mainly. But yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with belief, because physically it wasn't like a challenge, and it was like there was this belief going through my mind that you can't do this, and then I was not identifying with that belief, and then I was like trying to recondition and see how the things that I learned in the previous days can be implemented today. That's, I think, one of the bigger ones. There was also other realizations that I'm starting to have about past situations, that realizations from the last day are helping to recreate narratives about past situations, which is what the mind will do. But I'm allowing it to recreate some narratives, and I'm observing the narratives and seeing like, okay, is this a positive narrative for the new self, or is this a negative one? And then the negative ones, I'm just, okay, not required. Next. So yeah, I think today was more about like implementing into starting to get ready to get back into the world and using this, what I've learned. Yeah, what about you? Or unless you have any questions about that?
Well, I didn't get much today in terms of realizing anything. I mean, I got those ideas that the emotions are created by a subconscious thought, which I kind of already knew, but I think today mostly was like being able to stay in presence and not get drift off into thought energy, like not into thoughts. Usually thoughts would come and I just blip them out. And walking down, like when we went for a run, walking down the street, like the road with the trees and all the scenery, I was fucking mind fucked, like, because there was no voice, and it was so great. There was no voice.
I felt
in the head. Yeah, yeah, people are so identified with this voice, but like when this voice is quiet and everything becomes better, like that's why usually people get their best days when they're the flow state people call it. It's like, oh, today was great, like was because there was no voice in the end. That was why you were in the flow state and everything was just flowing out of you and you were just like just going, and then everything just coming as it needs to come, and it's not like pre-planned. It just comes in the moment, just provides everything you need. And that's where the fucking, yeah, where is the brilliance of being human is, like, think Sadhguru said something interesting. Because he said like people would think that he was superhuman, and he said, "No, I'm not superhuman. Being human is super." you know, and I think that's a good way to put it. Is like when you really find that space, when you find yourself, your real self, in that presence, you just everything just falls into place. Just everything just becomes what was always meant to be. And yeah, humans have this great potential to to be amazing in all ways, But yeah, we still have a long way to go. Overall, as a species, we have still in the dark ages. And yeah, we went to the Muji, to the Mont Sahara. Some people, for you guys that don't know, like, so there is like we're actually very close to like a spiritual retreat place where there is this spiritual master, Muji Baba. You can follow him on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
He has like he has a website as well, muji.org, and yeah, like it's like yeah, like inspires me to see that there is these communities, spiritual communities, that bring people together and people actually have this real bonding experience because they are able to do that in those scenarios because they give themselves permission to do that in those circumstances because they don't feel judged. But still, like there is a space that I'm grateful there is actually a lot of places and spaces where people can actually be themselves without judgments and without the usual societally conditioning, and where people can just actually be what they meant to be with each other,
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I think when we went up to the place Mount Sahaja from where Muji's at, like I don't know, but like I could feel the energy just shift as soon as I got there. Like we get out the car, and it's like the air felt much clearer. There was like this presence in the air, and yeah, we even met a few people who were there, and it's like everyone just seemed like on this higher vibration, and the air up there just seemed like so clear, and yeah, I don't know if you felt the same or what.
Yeah, like it's funny. I was walking towards the entrance, and then like just tears start shedding down my eyes. That was interesting, because I didn't know why was that happening, and that in the last months that it happened to me a lot. Like just start crying, my eyes out for no reason at all, or like apparently for no reason. There's no like logical like the mind is always judging like what the fuck, why are you crying, like there's no, because the mind's always trying to like judge whatever is happening and make a logic out of it. And I think the thing with a lot of humans to limit themselves is like to only act within the boundaries of logic and not let themselves loose and to go beyond the boundaries of logic, because real humanness isn't about logic, isn't about being pragmatic, isn't about getting as much as you can get. That's not what human is, like real human is about. Being a human is about, it's you have the, like, I think Eckhart Tolle has a good one on this, because he says he loves the how it says in English the word, it's human being. So you have the human side, and then you have the being side. But most people are just stuck in the human. But you gotta bring the being into the human, and then you have a human being, and I found that very powerful to realize. Oh shit, yeah, he's right. You have to bring the being, so you can call yourself a human being. Otherwise, it's just a human, not a human being.
You don't want to be a human doing.
Yeah, human doing or human having. Yeah, like most people should call them human having. Human having. Because they're like, how can I get before I die? How much can I get? How much can I do? Let's do.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
you're a human doing, not a human fucking being.
How many human beings have you actually met then? It's like
Very few.
Very few. But yeah, that's an interesting quote. I never heard that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this whole last few days, this retreat, has completely changed the way that I saw meditation going into this retreat. It's like the way like meditation was to me before was kind of like always a challenge. It was always a challenge to sit down by myself, to to just even do a guided meditation was a struggle. It was like just to give myself that space. And yeah, for a lot of people, it might be the same. It's like when they try to sit down, the mind kicks in straight away. So it's like, what can we do like in those early stages to not fall back into the mind and not give in so easily?
What was your experience? Because since you came here with the different
I think
yeah.
for me, it was like the fact that I knew that I'm going to be here for 10 days. I feel like the mind just kind of gave up at a certain point. But early on, it was going wild. Like, it was just saying, pulling all sorts of stories in about trying to find things to do and go out and walk and go to the toilet when I don't even need to go to the toilet, like fucking all sorts of shit. And then it's like, after a while, the mind just realized, okay, he's actually going to do this. Let's try and find sneakier ways to try and distract him. So I just tried other sneak. It was like,
Sounds like a fucking game.
yeah, it was like, okay, level 1 didn't work. Like, we tried the fucking rocket launchers, they didn't work. Let's go with the snipers. So, like the fucking snipers would get me. So then they would come for the snipers. They were telling me like little thought patterns that I would just get lost into, and then I didn't realize that I was not meditating. And then again, I'd come back. But actually, the thing that kept me going, the way that I did it, just now thinking about it, was I started off with focusing on a glass. Like, I was first like focusing on the glass, and then every time my mind would wander, I would ask the question, like, what has this thought got to do with the glass? And if it had nothing to do with the glass, I'd go back to the glass.
What if your mind started narrating the glass company and the factory?
Maybe. But then I would... I guess my mind wasn't that intelligent to come up with that.
That would be funny. Like your mind be like, oh, but it's IKEA glass, and it was built in Spain, and like the factory number is 133757. You're like, what does that have to relate to the glass? And the mind is like, all of it. Shut the fuck up and listen. That would be fucking hilarious. Like if the mind be like, all of it. Shut the fuck up.
And then at that point, I would know that, oh, this motherfucker's controlling me.
To get what?
This motherfucker's controlling me. Then it'll be like, that will be the realization straight away. But yeah, I think the focusing on the glass, focusing on something was a good starting point. Because I think, yeah, if you didn't give me that, like if I was just doing it myself, I wouldn't have maybe chose to focus on the glass. I would have just kept trying to go into my head and meditate, and I keep getting distracted.
I
So
think that's a good point to get in. Is like the ego is too arrogant. Like it is not willing to be humble and be like, start, okay, I can't do this. Let me do something easier.
But I think for me, I didn't even know that focusing on a glass was a thing. Like, I'd never heard of the concept.
Okay.
I just thought meditation was just close your eyes and meditate. So I didn't know you could actually look at something. I thought you had to close your eyes. Like, I didn't know you can meditate with your eyes open, staring at something. But yeah, that was my
okay.
my ignorance, I
But
guess.
that's like focus meditation.
Yeah, sure.
Or practicing concentration
Mm.
and increasing your ability to focus, to concentrate. Because then, when you sharpen that blade of concentration, then you can cut through the bullshit quicker. You know.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I went from focusing on the glass to then some being able to go into a space of no thought for a little bit, and then the mind would drag me back. But then it was just kept getting longer and longer into that space. But I feel like the thing that really changed was when we did the guided meditations, because those guided meditations showed me a different space. So like when I went there, the first one especially, it showed me something else was possible with this. So when I did that guided meditation, it took me there. I was able to like, okay, maybe it's probably not the right way, but it's like it gave me something, an idea that something more was there, and then like, but the more I kept trying to get there, I didn't get there, but at least I knew something more was there, you know. Whereas before it was just like, okay, close my eyes and time passes, and thoughts come and thoughts don't come, but time passes. That's it. So yeah, I think for me, I've completely changed my relationship to meditation after this retreat. I don't know, maybe your
Yeah. What would you advise then for people that are skeptical and about maybe because you were skeptical recently, and what would you advise to them now that whatever you were aware of right now could give them a like a go-to, like some step-by-step like way to start?
Yeah, I would say like if you are skeptical, just know that it's not you who's skeptical, it's your mind who's afraid of dying or going into a place where you don't value it so much. That's why it's been skeptical. So just have that there. Wouldn't keep that thought in your mind. But
Are you saying
but that was
so are you saying any skepticism that comes up in anyone's mind isn't dumb? Being skeptical is a defense mechanism.
I wouldn't know about that, but I'm saying in this particular case, if it's
Okay.
specific about meditation, if you have never done it and you're skeptical about it, most likely it's probably that, because why would you be skeptical about something when you haven't tried it? It's like you've got to try it to be skeptical, you know?
I think that's a good point. Because I think most people don't think that's as skepticism, like this what this like I mean they see skepticism as like sounds like the most people's skepticism, they're skeptic even before giving a look at it, because it's not within their reality. So right away that skepticism arises. Like imagine like maybe for example like someone that makes usually like 1,000 euros a month, and if this show appears that makes 3K, you're gonna be like, oh, there's something catchy here, because this mind's gonna like having this kind of plateau where it's like, okay, I deserve 1,000, and then it creates this mechanism where it finds it strange that now it can make more, because it's not accepting the new reality to itself. And so that's how skepticism is used from the mind to protect the current reality, But like you said, real skepticism is when you become skeptic about your own skepticism. Like you become skeptic about the skepticism that you have in your head. Like, why am I skeptic? That's real skepticism. Like when you start being skeptic about your own skepticism, and that when you become like that, then allows you to be much more open-minded. Like, and open-mindedness is probably the number one thing for like personal transformation. Definitely, being open-minded to all kinds of crazy perspectives that most people would think outrageous or crazy, but you're just open-minded to all of it. And that allows you to, and the key point is not, because a lot of people, they've like, oh, but if I listen to this, then I have to believe it, because that's how people work. It's like, oh, if I accept this as a possibility, then I will judge myself for even giving that as a possibility, because then I have to, then I if I give it as a possibility, people having in mind that if they take something, they automatically have to make that a belief. They can't just like hold the thought, hold an idea without having to grab onto it and make it a belief out of it. And I feel like that's isn't true. Like you can hold the idea without having to believe in it.
I think the problem with that is like a lot of people have this uh, belief system that they've created around the self. So like if a thought comes that is outside of that belief system, they only work in belief systems. So they're like, well, if I believe this and it's outside my belief system, that means I have to change my belief system.
Yeah, if they look into that idea, they might have to question all of that they did until that point, because maybe that belief, if it's a very core, very like more of like a fundamental belief in them, like a core belief, then they have to question everything that is on top, that influence the life on top of that belief. Like I actually have a good example for this. I have a very good example actually. So my when I turned into vegan, my family was like asking me questions about what is this, why are you doing this, like you eat so much meat throughout your life, why you blah blah, and then trying to like give me all kinds of ideas about like this processed vegan food is the same thing as the meat processed food in the supermarket. So yeah, I watched this documentary on Netflix, Game Changers, and I like my aunt was like, oh yeah, like I was telling her like, oh yeah, but being vegan is proven, like it's proven that I don't know, but I never saw any scientific studies about uh being proven that that's a better option.
It's not more complicated. What it is if you just, you don't know, if you don't know what you're doing and you've been eating a certain way for 30 years and you suddenly take meat off the plate and you only eat what was left on the plate, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, it's more complicated.
Right.
And I said, I'll watch this documentary where they do tests on athletes and they prove that scientifically that being vegan is way better for your health and longevity and your capacity and your performance in every way. And she's like, oh, okay. I never saw that, blah, blah. And then, okay. And then I said, okay, I'm going to. And then later I sent to her, like, on Facebook, oh, here is the documentary showing that that's the case. And she responds, like, oh, yeah, I'll see you later. I see it later. And then next week, I go back there, ask her, so did you watch the documentary? She's like, oh, no, I forgot. And I was like, what? Okay, why did you not see it? So it shows you that being vegan is better and it's healthier and it will save you years of life. And she doesn't know why, but I know why. The ego doesn't want to. The ego knows that it's a very big chance that if you watch the documentary, that has to then enforce, like if becomes aware that's real, then he has to make a lot of changes in his lifestyle. And the ego doesn't want to, at 50 years old, doesn't want to be like, all those 40 years of life or 30 years, I was wrong. And now I should do this. But I don't get that. Like, what kind of trick is the ego playing? Like, so crazy. Like, people prefer to die earlier just to remain pride to their outdated belief systems that are fucking dumb and they just fuck up their health. But the ego prefers that to be to be humble or being honest with itself and be like, yeah, I fucked up. But yeah, it's crazy to me to see that and everyone doing that. Everyone is doing that.
Right, that was really interesting. And it's like this, but do you think that maybe it's she just didn't care as well. It's like the argument was that she was kind of from her point of view, she was like just giving a suggestion of what you should be doing, and then you were like more invested into it. From her side, she was less
Okay.
invested into that conversation.
Okay, so she was trying to prove me otherwise, right?
Right.
I was not sure. Okay, but otherwise is better. So why don't you?
Was she trying to prove? She was
trying to Yeah. get you
back to eating meat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And even like, I had this book, like even 3 years ago. I bought this. It was the first self development book that I read. It's called Unleash the Power Within from Tony Robbins, in Portuguese. And then the Christmas, I gave my aunt the book. She never opened it. And like, it's crazy to see that the people, like the things that would change people's lives, they don't even look at it because it's too painful to, or I wouldn't even say too painful. It's just like they just don't, they just avoid anything and everything that doesn't reinforce what they already believe in. That's everyone doing. They don't look at something that might go against it, and even if they see something, their RAS will focus on the things that still reinforce the beliefs they have, no matter what.
I think like these days as well, people have the ability with like their social media to just create an environment of people who just believe the same as them. So they keep on reinforcing exactly what they believe by watching the content of people who think exactly like them. And yeah, if anybody wants to change, they're not going to do that by watching people who think exactly like them and agree with everything they agree with. They'll have to change that up.
Yeah, because keeping the same and like just listening to things that make you feel good, intelligent, smart, you know what you're doing because the things that you're listening say that whatever you believe in, it's correct. Yeah, that makes you feel superior, good about yourself, but doesn't actually gives you the good things in life that you have to go through phases in life where you had to feel bad, to going through a process of shedding the skin. You gotta be a little bit painful at start. But what are you do you prefer to like not do it at all and just like live a miserable life, or just suffer for a bit and then just crush it? Like what? I don't get that. Like, do you prefer to sacrifice 70 years instead of sacrifice one to then get 69 years great? Or you prefer to just be retard for 70 and just die ignorant? Like, I don't. Yeah. I just find that like interesting.
I think it's funny that I remember we spoke earlier, but I don't remember if it's today or some other day. But yeah, basically, like I got to one interesting realization during this whole thing, which, like, at one point, in certain aspect, I realized that even though it appeared on the surface level that the two of us were playing the same game in a certain situation, like deeper down, we were both playing completely different games. And then I was able to see like the accumulation of that difference over amount of time, small amount of time, like, well, in the grand scheme of things. But then if you multiply that by 10, you could see like if one person is thinking in terms of like, how can I improve myself? Another person is thinking of how can I stay the same and reinforce myself? Like over time, the drift apart will be huge. And like, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with like a lot of, from what I've seen in self-development, is like most people want to stay the same. It's like most people genuinely do not want to change. They don't have that desire to be someone else because their current self is them. And it's like, the entanglement is so real. That's what I've learned. It's like that entanglement is so deep that they just don't want to change, because change means killing the person that got them everything up until this moment. And that's too much for some people. But yeah, it's like kind of what is needed.
And knowing that, And the funny thing is when you come and like my work on it and realize that is even not a self. The self doesn't even is real. It's just a fucking crack up shit in your head. It's just a program. And then everyone is trying to defend this program that is cracked up. Like that's insane. Like and just thinking about that makes me fucking crack up. Like now, like when we go back to civilization, even when we went to the supermarket, like I just look at people. I'm like, holy shit, they all cracked up. They all in the fucking program. He's just fucking going. But yeah, it's like it's not like I'm judging, but just like, yeah, it's where humanity is right now. It's just crack. It's just fucking. It's the amount of sheer fucking suffering and selfishness and pain and violence and people treating each other like fucking bad and just like just looking at that and like seeing what life could be if everyone realized what we just realized this week, like what this planet could be like, what's the even what's the potential for in the next 10,000 years for this for human civilization. Like if people start like if they start teaching in school awareness work and like start teaching like people to fucking take control of the mind and all that shit and fucking delete the self and everyone just fucking having a blast and just experiencing joy and bliss and love and everyone just like hugging each other and not like treating each other like a separate creature. And it's like it's just a all new other. It's like there's this I think Eckhart Tolle. I never read this book, but it's called A New Earth. So that might be his vision.
You know, I was just thinking that actually, it's like it might just only take like 2 or 3 generations if you just start teaching the babies that. It's like if you just don't teach them maybe like this whole older, because from what I've seen now, it's like younger and younger people are more getting into green paradigms in life because it's cool. You know, it's like the whole Black Lives Matter thing. It's like it's a green movement, and people are just joining it because it's cool. It's like green in terms of spiral dynamics, but it's like,
green in a sense. Most people green is like is kind of like in most levels in a spiral dynamics the conventional even in the green one it's in a sense people just join communities to fit in and to be part of something.
sure, but it's
You know?
like you'd rather they join something that's actually green in terms of trying to help society rather than joining a community that will just imprison their mind like a religion. It's like at least they're joining something green and it's becoming cool to be like vegan. Like there's a lot of kids you meet who are like actually going to not eat meat and they're just seeing it, they're just doing it because it's cool and their favorite person on Instagram's doing it. But actually, it's actually making a difference to the younger generations, I think. And it's like maybe they're doing it for the wrong reasons and they're just following and deep down they're blue with it. But at least they're exposed to these green ideas earlier. Whereas like maybe older generations would never even get exposed to those ideas.
Yeah.
It's like you like I think back to like generations maybe 2 or 3 years older, like there were still fucking slaves and shit. So
Yeah, like it's funny that like we're here in Alentejo in Portugal, and like you see how like the average person in Alentejo lives life. He has like a fucking herd of sheep, and he just runs around with a stick and a dog, and that's like that's their paradigm. Like that's real to them. Like their dad, their granddad did that. Their dad did that. They will do that. Their son will do that, and just it keeps going. The fucking just the life, the lineage keeps going, and they don't know anything outside of that. So that's for them what is life is about. The fucking shepherd doesn't know anything about internet. Probably doesn't barely has access to the internet. Like
is that really a bad thing? Maybe he's like, well, they don't really have a choice, but at least they're kind of outdoors. They're doing what they're doing, getting some fresh air.
like people here seem much happier.
Yeah, like everyone says hello and they like.
Yeah, they wave to you and like they say hi and they smile, and they seem much happier than in big cities in Portugal, like especially Lisbon. People here seem much more happy because like just like the air that you breathe here is just just changed everything. Like just this pure oxygen that you just fucking take in here, like nothing compares to it. Like in Lisbon, just fucking dirty air. It's just that cleared our body like fucking nuts.
Yeah, I remember.
Just nature.
I remember when I went back to London, it was crazy how smoky it is there. So you go there and it's just like the air feels dirty. Like you can feel the dirt going through the air. And being here, it's just like, I remember even before we got to the retreat, just even out here, it's just so clear. And it's like, yeah, breathing that in constantly is gonna align your body. Like I felt that actually on the second day was just breathing in and out, like aligning things in my body correctly, where in the past it felt like different functions moving together, but at one point it just kind of felt like it was all just flowing as one. And yeah, this whole 10 days I think is I've got way more out of it than I ever expected, let's say, for sure.
Yeah, I think good for day 7. So yeah, day 7 out, done. Should we say to don't forget to subscribe? We didn't say that in the last ones.
Yeah, maybe it's alright. You can say it.
Yeah. So don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, that means no one
Hit that notification bell if you want to watch the next videos we will release as well. And yeah, stay tuned for the last 3 days left. So yeah, peace out.